That's entertainment. The empire built by talent and technology. Cable, satellite, and streaming.
Cable, satellite, and streaming. Table of contents.
All about entertainment in all its varied forms, from antiquity to the present day. A look at cable, satellite, and streaming TV.
Dr. Sydney Soclof. Dr. Sydney 22@gmail.com. 2023. Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Koltov. For a complete discussion of YouTube navigation, please go to tiny.1/YT-Navigator. That's entertainment. How talent and technology created a world.
That's entertainment. The empire built by talent and technology. Cable, satellite, and streaming.
Cable TV.
In cable TV, the TV signal is transmitted to the individual subscribers by a copper coaxial cable, or now increasingly more commonly by a high-speed fiber optic cable.
We will next have a short video clip on how cable TV works. 1 minute. 7 seconds.
Chances are you're watching this program today on cable TV. The way that the TV program gets to your house over cable is incredibly cool. It starts at a place like this, an antenna farm. The networks beam their programs via satellite to the local cable company. The cable companies take the different feeds off the different satellites and modulate them into 200 different 6 megahertz channels. The 200 channels are transmitted on a coaxial cable. That's why the service is called cable service. The TV signals work their way down the cable to your house. The problem is that the signal isn't strong enough to go for miles and miles, so the cable company uses amplifiers along the way to boost the signal. So how do some people get 800 channels? By using an MPEG encoder, a cable company can shrink a network signal and fit several of them onto a 6 megahertz channel. That's called digital cable. So that's how cable TV works. I'm Marshall Brain, and that's how stuff works.
Next, we will have a short video clip on cable versus DSL versus fiber internet explained. 6 minutes, 46 seconds.
Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 different internet access technologies. So we're going to discuss the difference between broadband cable, DSL, and fiber. So let's start with broadband cable. Now, cable internet is a high-speed access technology that uses a cable modem with an attached coaxial cable which provides a link to the internet service provider. Broadband cable is typically provided by the same provider that provides cable television to their customers. And because it's provided by cable television providers, broadband cable leverages the existing infrastructure from cable TV to cover large geographical areas, especially here in the United States. Today, if you want broadband cable, your provider offers different packages that vary in speed. So for example, I use broadband cable from Xfinity, and they offer download speeds anywhere from 25 megabits per second all the way up to 400 megabits per second. So if you were to order cable internet for your home, your cable internet provider would send you a modem, or typically they would send you a modem with a Wi-Fi router combo, which is often referred to as a gateway. And this device would be a modem with a built-in switch and Wi-Fi router all in one. So when you receive this modem from your ISP, you would attach a coaxial cable that's routed into your home, and then you would attach it to the back of the device. The modem is what brings the internet into your home, and the switch and the Wi-Fi router is so that you can connect multiple wired and wireless devices such as computers, laptops, tablets to the modem to give them internet access. And that's basically it. Now, cable does have a downside. And that's because you, along with the other homes in your neighborhood, will all have to share a pool of bandwidth that's been provided by your cable provider in your area. So what that basically means is that during peak hours of surfing the internet or streaming or downloading, you may experience a slowdown in your internet speed. And that's because the people in your neighborhood are all using the internet bandwidth. Now, DSL stands for Digital Subscriber Line. DSL is another popular technology that is used by homes and businesses to access broadband data over the internet. DSL can carry both voice and data at the same time over phone lines. It has a DSL modem like this one here that uses common telephone lines to carry its data. And because DSL uses phone lines, you don't want to confuse DSL with the older and painfully slow dial-up connection, which also uses phone lines. DSL is a high-speed connection that is much faster than the ancient dial-up connections. And with DSL, you can go on the internet and talk on a phone at the same time, unlike a dial-up connection where you can only do one at a time. Now, DSL is not as fast as cable, but it is cheaper. And also with DSL, you don't have to share bandwidth with your neighborhood like cable does. Everyone using DSL has their own dedicated connection. It's not a shared line. And DSL is more widely available than cable because it uses common telephone lines, which are nearly everywhere. Now, the speed of DSL can vary depending on where you live. But on an average, they offer download speeds anywhere from 5 megabits per second up to 100 megabits per second. And just like cable, when you order DSL through a provider, they will also send you a DSL modem Wi-Fi router combo. But instead of attaching a coaxial cable, you would plug a typical phone line with a phone jack to the back of a DSL modem. Now, there are a few different forms of DSL. And one is called ADSL, which stands for Asymmetric Digital Subscriber Line. Now, this is called asymmetric because the download speed is considerably faster than the upload speed. This type of DSL is mainly used in homes because home users typically download a lot more than upload. And ADSL is the cheapest form of DSL. And there's also SDSL, which stands for Symmetric Digital Subscriber Line. And this, as the name implies, the download and upload speeds are the same. And this type of DSL is typically used in businesses. And finally, there's VDSL, which stands for Very High Bit DSL. And this is a fast form of DSL that also runs over copper wire. And because it uses copper wire, it's really only made for short distances. For long distances, it can also use fiber optic cable. VDSL is roughly 3 times faster than ADSL. And finally, there's fiber internet. Fiber offers the fastest internet speeds available today. It has download and upload speeds of 1,000 megabits per second, so it's very fast. And the reason why it's so fast is because it uses light to send data running through fiber optic cable. And fiber optic cable is what's already used as the backbone of the internet. And in addition to the benefit of the faster speed, fiber can also travel much longer distances than DSL or cable. And this is because DSL and cable transmit data using electricity over copper cable. And signals in a copper cable can be affected by electromagnetic interference as it travels, which can weaken the signal, especially over a long distance. But fiber uses light to transmit its data, and it transmits it over a thin glass cable, which makes it less vulnerable to interference. So as you might have guessed, fiber is more expensive than DSL or cable, and fiber is relatively new compared to DSL or cable. The infrastructure is not there yet, so fiber may not be available in many locations.
Satellite TV.
In satellite TV, The signal is transmitted from a ground station to a geosynchronous satellite. The signal is then retransmitted from the satellite to a receiving dish. The very weak signal is then amplified and converted by a low noise amplifier and then sent to the TV set.
We will next have a short video clip on how does satellite TV work. 1 minute. 21 seconds.
Hi, my name is Brian Stevens. I'm the senior editor for Best Satellite Reviews, and I want to show you how satellite TV works. Satellite TV is a system in which a broadcast center sends a signal to a satellite in orbit around the Earth. A satellite is an electronic unit that hovers 22,000 miles above the Earth and is designed to receive signals from a satellite TV center and then send them back to Earth. A satellite dish captures the signal that's sent from the satellite, then focuses that signal onto the feed horn at the front of the dish. The feed horn then relays the signal to a low noise block converter, which converts the signal and passes it on to the receiver. The receiver is the box next to your TV that lets you change channels. It decodes the satellite signal and changes it into a video and audio signal that is then sent to your TV. Both Dish Network and DirecTV will give you DVR receivers. These receivers let you record, fast forward, and pause live TV programs. The two biggest satellite TV providers are Dish Network and DirecTV. Dish Network has 320 satellite TV channels and 100 satellite radio channels, while DirecTV has 265 satellite TV channels and 100 satellite radio channels.
We will next have a short video clip of how satellite internet works. 1 minute. 50 seconds.
Satellite internet technology makes high-speed internet available in remote or rural areas of the country. If you're looking into signing up for it, it helps to know how it works. There are 5 parts to the process. First is the device you're using, maybe a laptop or a smart TV or a gaming console. Second is your modem and router. These interpret the data signals into a form that can either be sent from or received by your device. Third is the dish, usually on your roof, which communicates directly with the fourth part of the process, the actual satellite, which is orbiting at 22,000 miles above the surface of the Earth. Each company has only 1 or 2 satellites serving the entire country. The satellite, in turn, communicates with the Network Operations Center back on the surface, so information is constantly traveling in a loop from your device to the Network Operations Center, and this whole process adds about a half a second of latency, or lag. That doesn't sound like much, but that's enough to make certain things difficult or even impossible, like fast-paced online gaming. Historically, satellite internet has come with slower download speeds than cable and fiber, and between that and the high latency, the industry hasn't had many fans. But things are looking up for satellite internet. Both major national providers have launched much improved satellites recently, and their download speeds are much higher than they used to be, up to 100 megabits per second in some cases. And it's about to get even better. Several companies have announced plans to fundamentally transform the way satellite internet works, using massive networks of hundreds or even thousands of low-orbiting satellites to deliver extremely high speeds with a fraction of the latency users currently experience, all within the next couple of years. For now, though, your choices for satellite internet are HughesNet and Viasat. And while their technology is similar, their prices and plans are pretty different. But we've got the reviews, the stats, and everything else you'll need to choose the right one for you right here at satelliteinternet.com.
Streaming and Internet TV. Streaming is on the rise.
The Wall Street Journal recently reported that in 2020, the number of subscriptions to online video streaming services reached 1.1 billion worldwide.
In the United States, streaming subscriptions increased by 32% last year, totaling 308.6 million. According to the Wall Street Journal, the world's largest streaming service, Netflix, recently surpassed 200 million subscriptions globally. Disney boasts more than 100 million subscribers to its Disney Plus, which isn't even 2 years old. Streaming television is the transmission of television content, such as TV shows over the internet. Streaming TV is in contrast to television delivered by over-the-air broadcast and subscription services such as cable television and satellite television.
Streaming TV is an on-demand service with two-way communication between the viewee and the service provider. The viewee can select any channel and show, and at any time. The TV program can be paused and then restarted at any time, and on any TV, smartphone, or computer that is subscribed to the service.
To obtain streaming video from the internet, you need to have a reasonably high-speed internet connection. Generally, anything above 10 megabits per second download speed is adequate. These are the recommended internet connection speeds to stream movies and TV shows on Netflix. 0.5 megabits per second to view standard definition movies on a laptop computer. 3 megabits per second to view standard definition video. 480p on a TV. 4 megabits per second to view a high definition video. 720p. 1080p. 5 megabits per second or more for the best 1080p experience. 15 megabits per second to stream 4K, but 25 megabits per second is preferred. You also need to have an interface between your internet and the TV. A smart TV has one built-in, but there are other devices that can be connected to other TVs such as Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Apple TV.
There are a number of streaming video providers such as Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, Tubi, Crackle, HBO Max, Vudu, Showmax, Peacock, Disney, plus Apple TV, plus and Paramount Plus.
We will next have a short video clip of what is streaming and why is it better.
Hi, I'm Matt Marenghi, and I'm part of the team that builds the user experience here at Netflix. At Netflix, our members stream over 1 billion hours a month of TV shows and movies. With streaming, we can bring you a much different and much better experience than what you get when watching traditional television, downloading a movie, or even playing a DVD. Streaming means that it's entirely on demand and always ready to watch instantly on virtually any device that connects to the internet. No waiting for a huge file to download before you can start watching. No need to tune in at a specific day and time. No more scheduling a recording to make sure you don't miss your favorite show. You simply click and watch what you want, whenever you want, wherever you like. In other words, Netflix streaming puts you in full control. You can even pause, fast forward, or rewind as you see fit. Our streaming technology also makes it really easy to start watching on one device and pick up right where you left off on another device. So give Netflix a try and enjoy your favorite shows and movies entirely on your schedule.
We will next have a short video clip about bandwidth, throughput, and speed.
Hello, and this is Sunny. Welcome back. Today my topic is about the difference between three terms which are often misused and confusing in networking field. Bandwidth often refers to the maximum amount of data transfer per second. For example, we can say gigabit Ethernet can provide a bandwidth up to 1 gigabit per second. In this context, it means capability. Bandwidth also means a range of frequencies used to transmit signals. In this case, it measured in hertz. If we have to use the term bandwidth in one sentence with two different meanings, here is an example. The bandwidth for a single-mode fiber can carry 10 gigabits per second with a bandwidth of 20 gigahertz. Throughput is actual amount of data passing through media or a specific connection. If bandwidth means what is possible in a perfect world or in a theory, throughput is what it is in a not perfect world or in practice. A network connection is like a bridge, and each bit of data is like a vehicle. If the bridge can handle 1,000 vehicles per hour at its full capacity, then we are talking about a bridge's bandwidth. Suppose every vehicle must stop to pay the crossing fee. The actual number of vehicles passing the bridge would be decreased to like 100 vehicles per hour. Now we are talking about the bridge's throughput. Speed is a general term. Many people use speed interchangeably with bandwidth or throughput, but speed often refers to how much data can be downloaded or uploaded per second through a specific connection, such as DSL or cable modem. We can say DSL download speed is between 10 to 100 megabits per second. With ADSL service, we can say download speed is faster than upload speed. I hope this video is helpful. Thank you very much and see you next time. Oh, don't forget to subscribe.
We will next have a short video clip of how to use Internet TV.
With all the media hype about 3D TV, you might think it's the next big thing in TV. But now you can have even more fun with your new set if it has the capability of being hooked to the internet. But even if it doesn't, for a very low cost, you can have a small device that makes it possible and easy. Using one of these devices and a wireless or wired internet connection, you can now have access to thousands of movies, TV shows, news, weather, and more without buying an expensive cable package. Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, Flickr, and other great low-cost or no-cost services can display entertainment and information without ever accessing the regular TV channels. Streaming videos can now be watched in the same 1080p high-definition picture your new set can display. Now, Internet TV is still evolving, and although its news content is up to the minute, TV shows and movie content is often delayed by days, weeks, or a season. But with the ability to bring a lot of your favorite internet content right to your home TV, the promise of Internet TV is finally becoming a reality.
We will next have a short video clip on how to stream internet content to your TV.
Some of the best video and music is on the internet, like on-demand movies and TV shows from Netflix and Hulu, or funny homemade videos from YouTube. But today you're no longer limited to only watching that content on your computer. I'm Sharon Vaknin for CNET.com, and today I'll show you how to get your favorite streaming content onto your TV. Lots of devices give you internet to TV streaming, but your choice will depend on what kind of services you want to access and what your budget is. For example, the $100 Roku 2XS is a tiny box that connects to your TV via HDMI and gives you 1080p video streaming from dozens of places like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, CNET, and even internet radio like Pandora. Keep in mind, of course, that with any of these devices, you still need to pay monthly subscription fees like $8 a month for Netflix. Roku connects to the internet with an Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi, but keep in mind that if you are using Wi-Fi, you'll need a pretty good connection at home. And as an added bonus, the Roku 2 is also packed with games. But if you want to opt out of games and that Ethernet port, the cheaper Roku model is $80. Speaking of games, if you have a PlayStation 3 at home, you're already equipped to stream internet content. With an Ethernet or solid Wi-Fi connection and a PlayStation Network account, you can stream Netflix, Hulu, Vudu, YouTube, and even some sports channels like MLB TV. The PS3 won't get you nearly as many services as Roku, but if you already own the console, games, a Blu-ray player, and streaming make it a great all-in-one device. The Xbox is also a media streaming device, but you'll have to pay $60 a year for an Xbox Live account, plus any subscriptions like Netflix. Now, if you're an Apple fan and you've got iOS devices and a well-stocked iTunes library, your streaming device of choice might be the Apple TV. For less than $100, this box can of course stream content from popular services like Netflix and YouTube, but the Apple TV is the only one that can also play videos and music from any of your iOS devices and your iTunes library on your computer. So you can stream a video you just shot on your iPhone or the Lady Gaga album you just purchased on your computer, all to your TV. Check Apple's website to find out what other streaming video services the Apple TV supports and do the same for the Roku and PS3 so you can pick the best device for your needs. And if you ever need a simple, cheap way to stream media to your TV, an HDMI cable from your computer or tablet to your TV should do the trick. You might need an adapter like this one for the iPad, but it's still way cheaper than buying a dedicated device. If you have any other streaming device suggestions, let me know on Twitter or my Facebook page. For CNET.com, I'm Sharon Vaknin.
You've probably heard a lot about analog and digital, but maybe haven't understood what it is all about.
Let us now learn a little about analog and digital and help solve the mystery of all this.
We will next have a short video clip of analog versus digital.
Analog and digital are two different ways of describing quantity. If you ask a fisherman how many fish he has caught, and he holds up 8 digits like this, he is describing the quantity of fish in a digital way. He's using separate individual digits to describe separate individual objects, which is fine, because this is a very clear-cut situation. You either catch 8 fish or you don't. You can't catch a little less or a little more than 8 fish. But if you ask the fisherman how big the fish was that got away, and he holds his hands up like this, he is describing the quantity of missing fish in an analog way. The distance between his hands is an analogy for the length of the fish. And this analog way of describing quantity is much more convenient than the digital way when you have to describe something that can vary continuously, given the elastic nature of the average fisherman's memory. In the world of machines, one of the commonest analog devices is a dimmer. The turning of the knob corresponds to the fading up or down of the light. It is a continuously variable device. The light can be more or less on. Contrast this with a light switch, which is the simplest digital device of all. The light is either on or off. Which brings us to that collection of on-off switches which is called a computer. Obviously itself a digital device, since it has to deal with everything in terms of binary digits. The computer's keyboard is also digital. There are lots of separate individual keys, and you either press one or you don't. But this can be awkward when you have to describe something which varies continuously, such as the movement of a little rocket ship on the screen, because you have to fragment this movement into separate units. Forward 30, right 90, forward 30, and so on. So here is where it's much better to use the analog way of representing continuous movement by means of game paddles, which relate directly to what is happening on the screen. The more you turn the paddle, the more the rocket ship turns. But there's room for both ways, of course, both analog and digital. If you want to represent reality in a smooth, continuous fashion, go analog. If you want to represent reality one little piece at a time, go digital.
We will next have a short video clip about physics, waves, analog and digital signals.
Analog and digital signals. There are two different ways of sending information, either by analog or by digital signals. So what's the difference? Well, let's look at the analog signal on screen. We can see that it varies continuously in both amplitude and frequency, and the signal can take one of many different values. Now let's look at a digital signal. So here we see that the signal can only take two values, either a 1 or a 0, which we sometimes call on or off. Digital signals are sent as a series of pulses of either 1s or 0s. Okay, so that's great, but which is better? Well, digital is a much better way of sending information over long distances. Now let's see why. So, here is someone talking on a phone. The signal from their voice is analog, sound, and it enters the phone and is converted to a digital signal, and then sent out via microwaves to a phone mast, which then sends it on to a satellite, and then back down to another phone mast, and then on to the person receiving the phone call. Let's look at the signal received by that phone. If we look, we can see it has picked up a lot of noise or interference, but it's still really obvious exactly what it should look like, so the phone can easily convert it back perfectly to be the same as the original signal. Now let's look at this using analog. So now the analog signal, the sound, enters the phone and is turned into an analog electrical signal and sent down copper wires. Now, note how it picks up noise and interference, and the amplitude is reduced as it travels until it gets to the other phone. Now let's look at it again. It looks very, very different to the original signal now. It's almost completely impossible to know what this signal should have looked like. And it needs amplifying as well. This amplification is only going to amplify the noise just as much as it does the signal. So noise or interference has really damaged the analog signal. And this is why digital is so much better than analog. Noise or interference is just not a problem for digital, but is a huge one for analog, making digital signals much higher quality. Other benefits of digital are that it can carry much more information. In fact, you can send multiple different signals all at the same time, and digital signals are also easily interpreted by computers.
We will next have a short video clip about computer science basics, binary.
Throughout history, almost every civilization has used a decimal number system with 10 digits, 0 through 9. All of the numbers we can possibly think of use some combination of those 10 digits. Computers, however, operate very differently. Instead, they use a number system that has just 2 digits, 1 and 0. This system is called binary, and your computer uses it all the time. Computers need information in order to do what they do. This digital information, or data, is made up of something called bits. Bit is short for binary digit, meaning each bit is really just a single number, either a 1 or a 0. These bits can be combined to create larger units like bytes, megabytes, and so on that we use to measure our files. The larger a file is, the more bits it has. So something like a high-resolution video is actually made up of millions and millions and millions of 1s and 0s. So how exactly do these 1s and 0s come together and allow a computer to function? Let's think of binary as a light switch. Imagine that a 1 represents the light switch being on, and 0 represents it being off. With binary, the light is either on or off with no other possible states. So these bits are strung together as different combinations of 1s and 0s, and they form a kind of code. Your computer then rapidly processes this code and translates it into data, telling it what to do. You might be wondering, why do computers use binary instead of the decimal system that we use for counting things in the real world? Well, as previously mentioned, binary has 2 states, off and on. If computers were to use decimal, there would be 10 states instead. Our computers would have to work a lot harder to process all of these. Binary is easier for them to process and also takes up less space. Just like atoms make up everything around us in the real world, everything in the digital world, including video, text, pictures, and more, can be broken down into binary. And even though we can't see them, it's all a bunch of 1s and 0s.
GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.
We will next have a video about why do computers use 1s and 0s.
It's a common theme throughout the modern world that everything in a computer's brain comes down to ones and zeros. You've most likely heard that this code of ones and zeros is what's referred to as binary. And while almost everybody knows that this is somehow related to what computers do, very few of us seem to understand what binary is or why computers use it. If you want to know, then this video is for you, because it's actually a very simple concept and still quite fascinating. Before we get to computers, let's talk about what binary itself is, as it existed long before computers did. Binary is nothing more than a system of counting. To understand how it works, let's look at two other systems of counting, tally marks and the glorious base 10 positional that we all know and love today. Tally marks are the simplest counting system imaginable. However many things you have, you put down that many marks, easy as pie, but not very efficient. Meanwhile, base 10 positional, which is what we use today, uses a different symbol to represent different amounts of things. With the numbers 0 through 9, we can recognize that each symbol indicates a different amount of things. If we need to represent something higher than 9, we add a digit to the left, roll its first digit back to 0, and start over. This system is very efficient compared to tally marks because each digit we add exponentially increases the amount of things we can represent. Because in this system we add a new digit every 10 things, each digit represents an increasing power of 10. This is the number of ones we have, the number of tens, the number of hundreds, the number of thousands, and so on. Now this is probably something you already know, but it's very important to keep it in mind when we talk about binary. Now binary works the exact same way as base 10 positional, but instead of each digit going from 0 to 9, it goes from 0 to 1. Counting upwards in binary sounds like this: 0, 1, 10, 11, 100, 101, 110, 111, and 1000. Because each digit of binary has only 2 values and not 10, each additional digit represents an increasing power of 2 rather than an increasing power of 10. So this is the number of ones we have, the number of 2s, 4s, 8s, 16s, 32s, 64s, 128s, and so on. Not nearly as efficient as base 10, but exponentially more efficient than tally marks. Literally. So now that we know how binary works, let's talk about computers. Why did the first computer creators, as wise and intelligent as they are, waste their time with such an ineffective system of counting? Well, it's because of a physical limitation on how computers work. Everything a computer does comes down to what's known as microtransistors. Simple, tiny, eensy-beensy little switches that can either be on or off and can be flipped on or off with a very weak electrical charge. The first goal was to get computers to count. And to get them to count by using these switches, we could use the tally system, meaning the number of on switches equals the number of things we have, or we could use the much more efficient system of binary, where each switch represents a digit of binary. 8 transistors using the tally system could represent a number as large as 8 by turning all of them on. With binary, we can represent a number as high as 255. An on switch means a 1, and an off switch means a 0. Now is a good time to mention that a single transistor is what's known as a bit, which stands for binary digit. A byte is 8 of these bits in a row, which means any number between 0 and 255. So if binary is just a system of counting, what do people mean when they explain how to spell things in binary? Well, what they really mean is how to spell things with ASCII. The American Standard Code for Information Interchange is a way to convert a computer's data, which can only be in numbers, and turn it into letters for humans to have an easier time to work with. ASCII simply assigns a character to each value represented by a byte of binary. Now because a byte has 8 digits of binary to work with, and 8 digits of binary can represent up to 255 values, ASCII had 255 letters and symbols to choose from, more than enough for the entire alphabet, punctuation marks, and other symbols. For example, the corresponding ASCII number for an uppercase A is 65. Now 65 in base 10 is equal to 1,000,001 in binary. So whenever you type in an uppercase A in a word program, a coding program, or a scripting program or whatever, somewhere there's a little tiny row of 8 transistors arranged in the pattern of off, on, off, 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 on, which represents 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 in binary, which is interpreted as 65 in base 10, which is converted by ASCII into an uppercase A. You're likely starting to get a feel for the staggering amount of transistors required to write something as simple as a Facebook status, let alone all the different coding that your computer has to do to make the screen light up, play games, calculate massive values, and so on. Well, long before we got to the point where your phone can play three-dimensional games, it became clear that numbers as high as 255 just weren't going to cut it. Regardless of how many bytes we had, and it was a lot, even adding 4 fully active bytes together could only get a number as high as 1020. To solve this problem, new computers were designed to recognize 2 bytes as one single number. So now instead of referencing one line of 8 transistors, computers could reference 2 lines, giving 16 digits worth of binary. This was a huge help because it increased the amount of representable numbers exponentially from 255 up to 65,535. When you hear people talking about the difference between 8-bit and 16-bit, this is more or less it. Now that doesn't mean that a 16-bit system is exponentially that much more powerful, because your program isn't always going to be utilizing all of these numbers in each byte that it represents. It just has the option to, which opens up lots of doors. Well, this could go on for ages and ages, but I want to end this particular video right here so as not to be overwhelming. In future videos, I will explain how computers use these numbers to decide which pixel is what color on your monitor, what the different components of your computer are for, and how hard drives store binary digits on a spinning disk rather than in transistors. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, liking and subscribing is always a huge help. While I've been enjoying making these instructional videos, I might move them to a different channel soon and continue doing comedic gaming related things on this channel so as not to confuse YouTube's search algorithm, which I think I am.
Fiber optic cables. We will next have a short video clip of what makes fiber optic faster than copper.
Have you ever wondered why fiber optic cables are faster than copper wire? The answer, as it turns out, is pretty interesting. Copper wire has been used for electrical wiring since the very invention of the electromagnet and telegraph hundreds of years ago. When the telephone was invented in the late 1800s, copper wire became the go-to material for long-distance telecommunications. Copper would prove to be an invaluable material for many decades to come, until the invention of fiber optics in the 1950s. While it would take several more decades for fiber optic to be used widely for telecommunications, it would eventually supersede copper cables for many uses. But why? Fiber optic cables use pulses of light generated by an LED to transmit data along strands of glass or special plastics. Copper, on the other hand, relies on the transmission of electrical currents along its length to perform the same function. Data is transmitted on copper cables as electrical pulses. A detector receives and decodes the signal. However, the longer the signal travels, the more it deteriorates. This is a phenomenon referred to as signal attenuation. With fiber optic cables, the transmitter converts electronic information into pulses of light. The pulses are given in a binary system, with one pulse equating to a 1 and no pulse equating to a 0. When these light pulses reach the other end of the cable, an optical receiver converts the pulses or lack of pulses back into electronic information. So far, so good, although it might be important to understand what is meant by faster when comparing the two. When discussing the relative performance of either fiber optics or copper wire, the term faster is a little deceptive. Both fiber optic cables and copper wires transmit data at speeds slower than the speed of light in a vacuum, though some recent developments in fiber optics have managed to come closer to the speed of light. Yet either copper wire or fiber optic speeds could, in theory, transmit data around the Earth several times a second. For all intents and purposes, when comparing the speed of the two, what we are really talking about is something called throughput or capacity. These terms relate to the relative quantity of data transferred per unit of time. Fiber optic cables have, without a doubt, the higher throughput of the two, especially over long distances. A local area network using modern copper lines can usually handle around 3,000 telephone calls at any one time. Fiber optic cables, on the other hand, can usually handle more than 31,000 calls at a time. This difference in throughput of data is determined by the frequency range that either cable can manage. The higher the frequency range, the greater the bandwidth, and the more data that can be transmitted through the cable at any one time. This is the key difference between the two types of cable. Fiber optic cables have a significantly larger bandwidth capacity than their copper wire counterparts. For this reason, fiber optic cables can carry much higher frequency ranges than copper cables. Copper wire also has the problem of attenuation or signal loss at higher frequencies when compared to fiber optic cables. Fiber optic cables are also far less susceptible to noise and electromagnetic interference than copper wire, as the latter is made of metal. Another problem experienced by copper wire is that it can lose signal quality along its length. Over a distance of, say, 200 miles, fiber optic transmissions will show little or no loss of quality, while transmissions over copper wire will show significant degradation. So while copper wire is still used because it is cheaper than fiber optic cable and it is becoming faster, fiber optics still comes out on top for many uses.
What is 1080p all about?
The numbers 2K, 4K, and 8K all refer to horizontal resolution. That is, the number of pixels from the left to the right of the screen. The term 480i, 720p, and 1080p all refer to vertical resolution. That is, the number of pixels from the top to the bottom of the screen. This shows the different resolutions from 480 to 1080. This is a chart showing the number of picture elements, or pixels, for the various resolutions. Recommended videos.
Recommended video: the first live TV from America, The Satellite Story, BBC Studios.
Recommended video: How Satellite Internet Works. Recommended video: How Satellite Internet Works.
Recommended video: How does satellite TV work?
Recommended video: How cable TV works.
Recommended video: Cable versus DSL versus fiber internet explained.
Recommended video: How to use Internet TV.
Recommended video: How to stream internet content to your TV. Recommended video: How to quit cable and stream TV the right way.
Recommended video: Computer Science Basics, Binary.
Signals and systems, analog and digital communication.
Recommended video: Analog and digital signals.
Why do computers use ones and zeros? Binary and transistors explained.
Recommended video: Fiber optics and how they work. A Galco TV tech tip.
Recommended video: Fiber optics and bandwidth.
Recommended video: Fiber optic cables, how they work.
Recommended video: How does light carry data? Fiber optics explained.
Recommended video: What makes fiber optic faster than copper?
Recommended video: Optical fibers.
Cable, satellite, and streaming. Table of contents.
Thanks for watching. Please watch some more of my great videos.